Hey, I'm Mark Rutan. Welcome to Nomad Boat Building. Now today we're going to talk about one of the very basic elements of wooden boat construction, and that is copper riveting. Now this is really just a simple way of putting two pieces of wood together with a mechanical fastener. It's very long lasting. It's fairly easy to do. You do need a couple specialized tools which you can't really buy very easily, but they aren't hard to make exactly. So you can use your ingenuity to fill in the blanks if you don't happen to have access to this stuff. Now, let's get right down to it. Let's take a closer look at riveting. So you got your rivet and your rove. Now I'm using square cut rivets. Now you want these to be long enough that you get about 1/4 inch protruding through your material thickness once you've assembled it. So something like that is more than enough. I get extra length. You don't want to have too much extra length because you're paying for copper after all. And then we have our dished rove here. So this is an English style rivet and rove. We need to choose a drill bit whose diameter is the same width as the cross section of one of these square rivets across one of the flats. Not across the diagonal, across the flat. We want those corners to bite into our hole a little bit. Now if you're working in real hardwoods, you might have to size this a little bit bigger, because otherwise you might find that your copper nail wants to bend when you try and drive it through a pilot hole that's too small. Our pilot hole goes right through the middle of our lap. Now you need a bucking iron. This one is purposely made for doing riveting, so it's got a countersunk hole in one end, and this hole down the center is probably about 2 inches deep. It's got to have a nice mass to it. First thing I do is start my nail. We put the bucking iron on the backside just to support the plank and keep it from bouncing. I drive the nail through so that it's just protruding a little bit on the inside and also protruding a little bit on the outside. I want that sticking out a little bit for this next operation. So now we set our rove into the end of the iron here. And I drive it up until that nail is flush. Next you're going to need a set of nippers, and I've got these ones that give me a really nice flush cut. So now the real trick is nipping this off at just the right length. You don't want to go flush. You don't want like a full 1/8. We want about a 1/16 of an inch or so of nail protruding. Next, we back up the nail on the backside with the heel of our iron, and with our ball peen hammer, we want to just take little glancing blows off the edge of that rivet to start with. We're trying to mushroom that end over and capture it onto the rove. What we're trying to avoid doing is bashing the planking up as we go. Once we feel that we've got it well mushroomed over, we do something called setting the rove. We take a couple of sharp taps on the inside, and then we do another one from the outside to make sure that nail head is flush. My nail head is now just ever so slightly countersunk into the surface of the planking. Now we can just come back to the inside and just clean things up. If there's any sharp edges, you want to just very gently tap those over. We don't want to drive that nail back out. So these are glancing blows off the edge, not on the face of that nail. That's a really nice, neat job right there. We don't have any dents in the surface of the planking. Sometimes you might get the odd little light glancing blow on there if you're not careful. But you can always swell out this surface area with a damp cloth before you call the boat done. Then on the other side, sometimes you get some slight scarring from the hammering on the outside. You can put a damp cloth and an iron over this, and that'll swell that grain back up. So long as you haven't crushed the fibers here, those dents should swell out quite nicely. And that swelled them right back out there. You could do the same thing on the inside. It's just a little more difficult to work around that rivet. This would be a great place for using a detail iron if you happen to own one. Now if you have too hard a blow, like that for instance, we've crushed the fibers, so let's see what happens when you steam that out. See, that's still depressed there. We'll try it some more. And those fibers are still crushed because I broke them really. What you can try is you can try dampening that with some water and just leaving it for a while. We'll squeeze a little on here, let it puddle, and I'll come back in a few minutes and we'll try steaming that again. Okay, it's been about 10 or 15 minutes since I slopped a bit of water on there, so let's try steaming this again. I like to use a wet cloth every time. That's pretty good. There's still a few broken fibers there. Give it another shot. All in all, I'm fairly impressed. You can still see a little bit of that scar still left, but considering how deep that was, that's pretty amazing. I could probably keep working that and getting it out further. But that's just a good example of how you can use steam to sort of fix some mistakes. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you know when the next video is out. And if you can help me out on Patreon, I can really appreciate that. You can find the link down there in the What's a Doodle. Ciao for now, folks.